welcome to episode 00. It's titled episode 00 because this is also, if you could tell by the description, this is the first unofficial episode of the podcast. So it's not going to be a super long episode. It's not going to be full of substance. It's not going to be as good as other ones that will precede this. So, as per title, this is the introduction episode. So essentially, I'm going to be kind of just going over some of the things that we're going to talk about in the future. There's a litany of things that I want to deep dive into. So you're gonna hear me say a lot of and ohs a lot because sometimes I don't know exactly what I'm saying or I'll get distracted. And actually, that's kind of important. That word I just said right there, distraction. I'm gonna do a full episode of the importance of not being distracted. Staying focused and working on anyway. So as I say that, I was getting myself distracted because I kind of put myself in a pickle today. I kind of took a personal day and didn't tell anybody I was taking a personal day, so it worked out. Everything's good because your boy's a superstar. They love me. That's not important, but it was grimy. I shouldn't have done that. I say the ums and ohs because I'm trying to get through this stuff. I'm going to send this email to her. Anyway, that shit was crazy. So kind of had some things wrote down of like what I want to talk about. And again, this is the first episode. It's an introductory episode, so I'm gonna talk about some points and like certain. I'm not gonna talk about the things I want to talk about per se, but I'm gonna let you know what's coming and the things to come. So, for example, I don't want to say on the next episode or episode number blah blah blah. This is what we're gonna talk about because I don't have a plan. I don't have a structured time stamp of like, okay, I'm going to be talking about this on this day, this on this day, this on this day. And to an extent, I've been kind of working on that. I've been taking notes down of like what I want to talk about and how deep I want to go into certain topics and situations. For example, I'm going to do a whole episode on my interactions with the police. And that's just one example of one of the things. And I've had many interactions with the police, and that's not like, I'm not saying that as like a gangbanger or like I'm proud of it, or it's just like I've done some things that got me in trouble, and nothing crazy, little speeding tickets and getting in trouble as a kid, bullshit like that. As I got older, there were incidents that I'd been involved with police that could have been avoided, and because of the way I look and like the way I don't like just fold over to people, I guess you'd call it, some people call it an attitude, I just call it standing up for myself. Or like if someone says something to me, like a cop's like, oh, you have to be like this, I don't have to do anything for you, bud. Like, just because you're wearing a badge, like, I'm gonna tell you my opinion. You don't have to like it, but I have the right as an American to do it. Free speech. In one of the other episodes, and I'm gonna talk. Also, the plan too is to have guests. Obviously, doing a one-man show all the time is gonna get kind of, I'm gonna say, I hope not boring. That's not the word I want to use. I hope that the things I say, and again, a lot of the things I say aren't going to be for everybody. A lot of the experiences I've had and a lot of things that I'm going to talk about, like, not everybody's dealt with shit like that. And I'm not saying nobody goes through shit, but what I'm saying is, like, I'm just going to give you, like, my perspective of a lot of events and situations I've been involved in, good or bad. There was another episode that we're going to get into is why you got to be careful fucking around with these stitches. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about some of my, like, my dating failures. I don't really know, maybe not failures, I don't want to say that necessarily, but situations that I've been involved with while dating someone or whatever because of other shit. I know I'm kind of being vague because, like I said, I do have a lot to say and I don't want to say too much, because this is again, the unofficial first episode, so we're just gonna go. You're getting a taste of what we're gonna talk about. I'm gonna kind of, as I'm saying this, I might write some of it down too, because I know I'm gonna forget a lot of shit. There's gonna be an episode centered around influences and, what is that word? What did I write down? Inspirations. Yeah. There's gonna be a list of celebrities that I talk about, and I think I'm gonna do it all in the same video just for the sake of kind of keeping things all together. But there's a list of maybe, it might be longer, it might be shorter by the time I actually get to this video and put all my thoughts together and put all the words down to the paper that I need to write for it. But as far as like celebrities go, and like for example, first one off top, like just like Triple H. He's a pro wrestler. For anybody who doesn't know that, if you don't, you've been fucking smoking meth at the damn Bikini Bottom for the last 20 years. But and it's gonna be just examples of like, I'll give you one example right now. So Triple H, super influential in my life. The way he carried himself as a champion, you know, the way he talked on the microphone, like just little things over the years, watching all of his matches, how brutal he is. And then it's just like, and I'm going to talk about a lot of moments in wrestling history. This first one right now is just the first one that pops into my head because I was already talking about Triple H. But I'm gonna dive deep into like what it was like being, you know, 7-8 year old kid and seeing on TV. Obviously now I know a lot more about pro wrestling and what goes into it than I did as a kid, obviously. So, but I'm gonna have we're gonna talk about like just moments in pro wrestling that like are etched in my brain and have been etched in my brain since the moment I saw them, whether I was, you know, 7-8 years old as a kid or even in my 20s. There's still moments, you know, a moment that resonates in my head, like off top. SummerSlam 2022, last year, a year ago. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, main event match, title match. Brock Lesnar comes out on a fucking tractor and lifts the ring up. That shit was crazy as fuck because nobody ever did that shit before, right? And it's like, it's moments like that, not just that, obviously, because like I said, I've been watching pro wrestling for nearly 30 years, so I have a lot of memories. We're gonna talk about a lot of the deaths in pro wrestling, and a lot of and like kind of how I was feeling at the time I found out that these people had passed away. Eddie Guerrero, he's gonna be someone we talk about a lot. His passing, that's something I'll never forget. You know, that's another one of those moments in time that was just like, I remember exactly where I was at, exactly on the map. Like I was in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I was like in this little trailer park, and I was, what was it, 2005 he passed? Yes, or 7? 5 or 7? I think it was 5 and Benoit was 7. Either way, I was still a young kid, and like every week that I had the chance to watch it, I saw Eddie Guerrero on there, right? Eddie Guerrero, badass, you know. And then like you go on there one day and it's like, oh, he's dead. Like what? And then, you know, Triple H. We're gonna circle back to him because this moment kind of eluded me while I was talking about the other shit that I was talking about. In 2002, Shawn Michaels came back from an injury, and again, me as a kid, 2002, I'm what, 8 years old, right? Is that right? Yeah, 8 years old in 2002. That sounds right. But again, like, there's a moment that lives in my mind forever from 2002, pro wrestling. Obviously, there's more than one, but this one right here, Shawn Michaels comes back. You know, it's a big deal. He's on Raw. He's like, oh, you know. And this is also like building up to SummerSlam. I think I could do a whole video on about like the importance of like the SummerSlam pay-per-view and like a lot of the matches that have happened on different SummerSlam cards that make me like, that have shaped my life in one way or another. I mean, you know, there's so much history that I've been like a part of. I don't want to say a part of, that I've experienced or witnessed. I have been a part of a lot of history in NXT as far as like Halloween Havoc and Worlds Collide. I was in the arena when the New Day became Triple Crown champions. I was in the arena when Braun Breaker defeated Ilya Dragunov and Tyler Bate and unified the United Kingdom title and the NXT title. And I mean, just so much shit in between, just from like a year and a half going to NXT, that like I never thought, like from the first invitation I got of like, oh, hey, sign up, you can go to NXT. And I was like, oh, that's a dream come true. And I didn't know at the time that I would be there for so many like moments that only maybe 300 people or so can say, hey, I was in that arena too. I was there when that happened. And that's super special because it's moments that are going to live in wrestling history forever. Like I said, let me go back to the New Day. When they won the NXT Tag Team titles, Triple Crown belts. I don't remember what day it was. We can, if we want to talk about that more, and I can point you out on the camera where I was. We can go back to that episode, and you can see in the crowd, they get the belts and they go in the crowd. They're up by the NXT sign, and I'm like 10 people away, like 10 persons away from them, like celebrating and shit. And the ambulance match, I was there for an ambulance match. There was like a lot of first ever things that happened in NXT that I experienced. And again, like only a handful, only like 300 or so people got to experience these moments like I did, being in the arena. And some of these guys and girls that have been going to NXT, they've been going for years and years. And it's crazy because they've been a part of like history and stuff. And that's not what this is about. It's just crazy to think, like, for me, I never thought I'd be, if even 3 years ago, if you're like, Cody, you're going to be at a Halloween Havoc event, you're like, what the fuck? No, you're not. Like, what? And then the first ever Worlds Collide, like I said, when they unified that and they unified the women's titles, I was there for that. And I have a lot of footage on my phone. Like, I could go back and like pinpoint exactly like months worth of stuff, months worth of clips and footage and pictures of like being part of history being made. And it's super cool on the other side of that because I know I'm going to be making history. I'm going to be making history in that same arena. I'm going to be doing things that's never been done before. I'm going to be already, and it sounds crazy, but, and maybe to people that don't really understand how all this shit works as far as like manifesting, but I've been manifesting this shit for years. And I've realized up until recently I was doing it the wrong way. And then once I started doing it the right way, the door started opening left and right. I don't even, if some smartass wants an exact number, I can do the math and like go through all my shit and figure it out. But I've had many interactions on Twitter, Instagram, and in real life with wrestlers, with pro wrestlers. And out of just sheer luck, and just being like one example, I've been liked or retweeted by, and this is just some of them. I know I'm gonna be missing some off top, but Road Dogg, Jim Ross, Sabu, New Jack, Rob Van Dam, Rob Van Dam actually like a couple times. Baron Corbin recently liked a tweet that I put out on Twitter this week actually. And it's like all these little things. When they first started happening, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like so-and-so just liked my post. Like, what the fuck? That's crazy. And then it happened again. And like The Godfather, he commented back on something. It was one of those things that was like, tagged him in a comment and he like replied to it with like a laughing face or something like that, or replied to it with a like or whatever. And the same with RVD. And you're like, you don't have to believe me because I took screenshots of that shit because I knew I didn't even believe it. I would watch it, like go and I'd like look back and be like, no, this didn't happen. No, there's no way. Anybody that follows Joey Janela on, we'll have to do some math here because I don't remember the exact day, but all the internet detectives out there that think they have to be right about everything, they can fucking scoop this up and figure it out and fill in the blanks for us. Orlando, Florida, at a GCW show in 2023. They may have had more than one, but the one I particularly went to was in like March or April, somewhere around there. Point being, I took a picture with Joey Janela, posted it on my story. He reposted it on his story. What? And shit, it blew me away. I'm not gonna lie, I was still like starstruck, and I was like, no. And I was also mad zooted because, you know, your boy fucking always fucked up and shit. So it was like, was I fucked up? Was I dreaming? Did that really happen? And like, I might even screenshotted that too, but I reposted the picture on my story of like him posting me on his story or whatever. And I guarantee you, like, some people, there's gonna be someone out there that remembers what I said, or that remembers what I look like, that saw me and be like, oh yeah, I remembered, like, I saw that kid on Joey's story, but I didn't know it was me, right, or whatever. But it's like all these little things that have been happening to me for over the past few years. It was just little things like that was telling me, like, okay, kid, you're on the right path, bro. You're on the right path of superstardom. Just like keep going. You're gonna be there. And then the more it happened, it just like, it was less coincidental, and it was like, okay, they're recognizing superstardom, like, you know, greatness, great, realize, real lies, or whatever, right? But I don't know. It's just 5 years ago, if you would have told me, hey, that pro wrestling shit's gonna work out for you, kid, I would have been like, no, it ain't. As much as I wanted it to, I just didn't believe it at the time. And it was just so much, it wasn't always so much me. Like, I always knew I was meant to be a wrestler, pro wrestler, superstar. I knew it day one. Like, soon as whatever the first tape it was that I saw, my memory might be a little fucked on this, but I'm almost certain it was like it was like a by accident kind of thing that I stumbled across it because my mom got this box of VHS tapes at a yard sale, and in it was King of the Ring 2001, the Stone Cold Steve Austin like uncensored tape where he's just like talking trash and shit talking and unleashing whoop ass on everybody, and it's like, okay. And it was like that video, the King of the Ring 2001, and there was like another tape that was in that box. And my mom at the time, she was like, oh, you know, whatever the price was, $2 for a box of VHS, like, cool, you know, 'cause she, on top there was like whatever fucking movies, I don't know, kid movies that were in there, you know, like Disney shit or whatever. And, you know, because my sister was just a couple years older than me. How old is Brittany? I'm 29, so she's got to be like 33 or something now. I don't know. We weren't too far apart, but the point is she didn't know the tapes were in there. She didn't know that the wrestling tapes were in there, and but I did. Well, I mean, I didn't know until I found them. Obviously, I was like looking through the tapes, and it's like Shrek and whatever, you know, just whatever tapes are in there, and like, oh, what's this? And like, this looks cool. It's like the back of I remember the box vividly for King of the Ring. It had like the big chair on the front of the display, and like on the back, if I remember correctly, like it had like a couple pictures of like, I guess, obviously stuff that was happening on the King of the Ring pay-per-view, right? And I'm like, oh shit, this looks dope, you know, threw it in. And that was like where it started. I couldn't have been, you know, I was young. I don't want to say that's where it started. That's where it really intensified. Because I need to go back a little bit further in the timeline of like when I was actually like, maybe I couldn't have been more than 5 years old. I couldn't have been, like, realistically speaking, I couldn't have been, because WCW ended in 2001, right? And I vividly have these memories of like, I don't know if like I know my parents didn't let me stay up. I had to been on like some mischievous shit, because I just remember like I just happened to switch from like from Raw to Nitro, and it was like one of those fate moments of like, holy shit, there's 2 wrestling shows now. So then whenever I discovered that, the next as many times as I could, you know, up until 2001, it may not have been as a lot of times. It's definitely at least 10 or 12 different times, because we didn't always have cable and didn't always have like this and that. But I do remember having that switch. I don't remember. I couldn't tell you who I was seeing on Nitro at the time, because like I barely knew who I was watching on Raw, but I was like, fuck, I knew I loved it. So I was like, whatever, you know? So I'd switch back and forth, and then like for a while, I'm gonna go back to like we didn't have the cable for a while. So my parents got divorced when I was like, I don't know, doesn't fucking matter to me. It was done and over with before I knew about it. So I had to be like 2 or 3 when they got divorced. I don't give a fuck, because like it worked out better. I don't want to say better. I don't know how my life would have turned out if my parents stayed together, actually, because it's just, that was a very combustible situation having them together. I mean, I guess obviously because they divorced, right? I didn't ever ask about that because I didn't give a fuck. But so I guess it is about 2000, 2001 now, and they'd been split, and they were living in the same town, but they obviously they're split, they're divorced. So one week I'm at my dad's, one week I'm at my mom's, one week I'm at my dad's, one week I'm at my mom's, and then for a while it was like that. Until they figured something else out, and then it was like I was here for X amount of time, and then here X amount of time, but that's later on in life. That's around like 2005 or so. But from like 01 to whatever, 2000 to like 05, I guess, I had missed a lot of it, you know, because for a lot of that time, I was living with my mom, and she didn't have cable. Or like my dad, he had it for a while, and like didn't have it anymore because of something happened. Couldn't afford it or something. I don't really remember exactly the whole situation, but I don't. And if you're like asking yourself like what relevance of this is that to wrestling, it's really not. It's just kind of like, again, this is an introduction episode, so I'm kind of like giving you a little bit of introduction about like me and about some of the shit I've been through, I guess. Because the whole parental trauma shit, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna go deep into that. I don't know. I can't say like my first like trauma, because so much shit meshes together. Um, but I I've always been like a macabre kind of dark kid, just because of the shit I've like grew up around. Like I said, my mom and dad, they were divorced. When my little sister, his mom, and my dad got together, I was like mostly living with my dad at the time, and they fought a lot. So I grew up, like not like going to school, um, you know, a few days a week, like exhausted as fuck because you know, the night before school, I'm in my room, like I can't sleep because they're fucking screaming at each other, hitting each other, and doing that shit. And I'm really glad that Destiny was like, she was she was really young. Like I don't think I want to talk to her on the podcast one day too. I want to get my little sister on here and kind of, if she's comfortable with it, and kind of get her side of the story and her experiences with that wretched mother of hers. Um, I I kind of, in a sense, I feel bad kind of saying that because like, she grew up and she didn't have, that mother figure in her life really a lot. She had like stepmoms and stuff, and just because her real mom was, I mean, looking back at it, like my dad was completely right. He gave this woman a chance to like clean and try to help her get clean off dope, and not like weed, like actual like dope, meth, and ice or whatever, and try to help her get clean. And multiple times, she relapsed, and I don't know, like I said, I was a kid. I don't know exactly what all was happening, but I know she was like stealing shit from like my aunt and like just causing problems with the family and like getting high as fuck and like lying to my dad about it. So like I get why he was mad. I wouldn't. I don't want my kids around that. Well, I don't have any kids, but if I did, I wouldn't want them around fucking meth and shit. So you know, so we dealing with that, and then on my mom's side, she like she's more worried about her boyfriends than she was her kids. So I saw that early on in life, and I knew that it was like, okay, so this is on me, pretty much. Like I kind of felt like I was like kind of like a lone wolf, essentially, like most of my life, just because most of my friends up to that point, they had to have seemingly. Again, I'm looking at this from like a 10-year-old kid, and I don't know other people's problems. 10, 12 years old, whatever. I'm looking at it from other people's perspective, like, oh, you guys seem like y'all have a happy life. Like, my friends always seemed happy and they seemed cool, and like, um, I should have had like an outline or like a script, not necessarily a script, but like I said, an outline or something to kind of, because I'm bouncing around, things kind of pop up into my head, and I'm like thinking about it and talking about it, and then it's like bringing me back to like different pieces of the puzzle and like bouncing around. But I promise you guys, I'm gonna get to everything. I'm gonna like um like some of my earliest memories as a kid, uh, which really don't come like, again, 4, 5, anything before like 4 years old. I don't really remember. And again, from like 5 to 7, the only thing I really remember vividly is just like my love for pro wrestling and like that channel switch between Nitro and Monday Night Raw that I like came across one night. Um, there, I by the time I was 10 years old, I had already experienced being around drug addicts, and I've been and alcoholics, and death. Death was very permanent in my life. By the age of 10, I had already lost two brothers. I and again, I it's not a big deal for my dad and like his old lady at the time, which is my younger sister's mom. So everything kind of worked out, because if my two brothers didn't pass when they did, I don't think Destiny, like, I never would have had a little sister. So it was, it was one of those things. But again, I'm 9 or 10 years old. I don't really know exactly what death is, but I'm starting to understand that, like, it's not good, right? And it's like, okay, I just remember, like, my dad being, like, real excited, like, yeah, you're gonna have two little brothers, you're gonna have two little brothers, you're gonna have two little brothers. And it's like, okay. And, I'm 9 or 10. I had to be younger because me and Destiny are, like, not 8 years apart. So, yeah. And so about, like, 8 or so. And, I just remember coming home from school, like, the, I guess, a day that it was, like, supposed to be, like, they're about to be born or what the fuck ever it was. And I just remember I come home and there's no lights on. It's just the sunlight beaming in the back window, and my dad's sitting at the kitchen table, and there's no TV on. There's no lights on. Like I said, it's just the sunlight, like, peeking in from the back window. And I get, like, my dad's sitting there. He's got his head in his hands, and he's just like, I'd never seen him like that in my life up to that point. So I didn't, and again, never after that either. Never did I see him, like, in that position. So I didn't know, really. I'm like, the true gravity of, like, I understood that, like, I was about to have a baby, like, two baby brothers, and then the next thing I know is, like, they're I still remember the funeral too, and that's crazy. That was, I think, the first funeral I remember. I feel like I'd been to one prior to that, but it was in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And if you guys are familiar with Hot Springs, Arkansas, some of you may be, there's an amusement park called Magic Springs. And maybe 10 minutes south of that is where we had the ceremony for the kids, for the boys. And again, I'm a kid. I'm just like, this is weird, like, why is everybody sad? And, like, what do you mean, like, they're not coming, like, they're not here? What do you mean? Like, I didn't get it. So it didn't really bother me. It didn't really hit me that hard that, like, I am burying two baby brothers. It's like, okay, whatever. I just remember, I remember, like, everything about that day. Like I said, from coming home to school, it was like a 2-day thing. It was like coming home from school that day, finding out I wasn't going to go to school the next day, which in my head, I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm getting out of school, fuck yeah. I hated school. Like, any chance to get the fuck out, like, I was always about it. So it's like getting out of school and go to this gas station. That's like right out. It's a real weird gas station, and it's just like a real somber morning. And the following day, when, like, the service is or whatever, I say the following day, like, again, my timeline is not perfect, but it had, like, you find out someone's dead, then you bury them. I don't know how long that process takes, but it felt like it was the next day or two. I just knew that I wasn't going to school the next couple days. And I think that's what it was. I think it was like a Thursday or something that I found out. Wasn't going to school Friday, and the service was on Saturday or Sunday or something like that. But I just remember, I still remember like the casket too, because it didn't even look like a casket, because they were fucking like palm-sized babies. They looked like an ice chest, like a foam cooler that you would get at the bait shop to put some fucking worms in to go fishing or something, right? And I just, it never really hit me until later in life that it was like, damn, that was like super tragic and sad and shit. But like, for me at the time, it wasn't, because I didn't know any better. Like, I had an older sister, and like we weren't like, we didn't get along that great, you know. So again, that was another why I was like feeling like a lone wolf a lot of the time, because like I didn't really have anybody that I ever had like got taken away from me in a sense, in some sense, or like they would move, like, or I fucked up a friendship by being like me for like, goddamn, I was horrible to be around in my early years. I still am sometimes miserable to be around, but I'm doing better about that, because I just know like it's just not worth it. But and like I said, so by then it's, and I knew, looking back now on like the way I treated like cabinet medicine, I didn't think about it at the time, didn't think a big deal of it, but I definitely like was on the path of drug use when I was like 10, 12 years old. And that's from like, you remember when you get sick and when you're a kid and you go to the doctor, you get that pink medicine, that pink shit that tastes like bubblegum? Yes, sir. That was what started it. And like the Motrin and shit. It's like every time I'd have like a headache or something, or I would get sick and I'd have that, and I'm like, well, shit, that shit's good. Let me get some more. And then I'd sneak in the fridge and, you know, get another little taste. Same thing with the Motrin. You know, oh, that's good. Let me have a little bit more of that. And I didn't realize at the time that I was like drugging myself, you know, essentially. But that's something we're going to talk about. I'm going to take like an entire episode to dedicate to talking about like my drug use cycle. And again, I don't condone this. I don't like, I'm not an advocate for drug users. I'm just simply sharing a story with you, I guess. Like, I'm sharing my experiences in life, good, bad, ugly, whatever, because I know a lot of people have dealt, nobody's been down the exact same road and I haven't been down the same road anybody else has been. But there's times where we've crossed those paths where it's like, okay, I didn't go through exactly that, but we're on the same playing field, like we're in the same ballpark, so I can relate to you in that sense, and you know, things like that. Um, uh, another so a lot of the stuff I say over some of these episodes, like some episodes are going to be funny because I have a lot of funny stories, you know, to tell. A lot of like really good, interesting stories. I also have some friends that I've experienced shit with, and I want to try to get them on episodes with me and like talk about certain events in our lives that we experienced together, and how they, you know, how they were the same experience for us, but how we perceived the experience differently, right? Or how that, you know, how that works. Also, like, I want to talk about a lot of the concerts I've been to, and then one off the top of my head, I'm just gonna kind of talk about right now, just because it was my first festival per se, and it was Edge Fest 2009. I'll never forget this shit, bro. I'll never forget this shit. It was me and my boy Dalton. We had tickets for it, and it rained, and it rained, and it fucking rained crazy as fuck. But they didn't cancel the show, but they delayed it, and we thought they canceled it. And so we were super late getting there. And I don't remember all the bands on that card, but I remember Chevelle, Slipknot, Korn. Let me back up, because I went to 2 different Edge Fests, and I might be one of them. It was just like this. I'm going to talk about the Slipknot show, the Slipknot Edge Fest. That was the first like festival type concert I'd been to. I was so excited, and finally, got the tickets, and it was just like the experience of like getting in the car, driving to North Little Rock from Hot Springs is where we were at the time. So it was like a 2-hour drive, and then traffic, plus everybody going to the concert, so more traffic, and then it was raining, and then we finally get in, and like it's a fucking mud pit. It's just disgusting. It's like you're wet, you're fucking pissed off. Like I'm already upset because we'd missed most of the show because we thought it delayed, or I don't know if we knew about the delay or we were just late getting there. That's not important. But what was important is the first time, like that was the first time I saw Slipknot. That was the first time I saw, and the only time I saw Chevelle. But it was just, I was so bummed out by the time I actually got to the venue that I didn't really have a good time. And there's a few events that I've been to in my life, even a couple of the NXT events that I've went to. It's just like the hours of experience leading up to the event are so fucking horrible and miserable that it just like takes my focus and joy away from the actual event when it actually happens. And I'm working on that, and like trying not to put myself in situations to where that becomes a thing anymore. But another thing too, so I'm super blessed. Not everybody can say this, but I was able to see Suicide Silence with Mitch Lucker before he passed away, and I was able to see Static X with Wayne Static before he passed away. And I'm going to talk about both of those guys when we get to the like the inspiration and the, we're going to talk about them a couple times. Obviously the inspiration video, because Mitch Lucker, he just that tattoo is from oh my god, the Cleansing album. I don't know how to think about that, but it's just his energy he possessed, and like it was one of those things that it was like you almost take for granted, because you're like you go to 100 shows and you're like, yeah, I'll see him next time, I'm not, whatever, and next time never happens. And that was kind of a thing with Suicide Silence, is like I had put off going to a show. I don't think it was because I chose to. I think I didn't have the money to afford to go, or I couldn't get off work, or didn't have a ride. Something like that. It wasn't like, oh, I just don't want to go see him. You know what I mean? Like I always wanted to go to shows, but there was always outside forces that kind of would come in and not make that happen. But that particular Edge Fest, that was another Edge Fest. It was Suicide Silence, and this one I do remember more vividly because I was a little bit older. It was a couple years after the Slipknot incident, and I'd already put that behind me, and I was like just getting to the point where I was like falling in love with deathcore. So I was like super in love with like Chapel and Chelsea Grin and Oceano and all that stuff, and like I was just taking it all in slowly but surely. So it's like, damn, It was like Suicide Silence, Black Label Society, Rob Zombie, Corn, Stained, maybe not Stained. I definitely remember Black Label Society, Corn, Static X, Suicide Silence, 5 show. I definitely remember those 4 were on, played at different stages, different times, or whatever. But it was maybe 2 months later. Again, if you're that worried about the exact timeline, I can figure it out because it might not be. It might be 6 months. But all I remember is shortly after I saw Suicide Silence, Mitch Lucker passed away on the motorcycle accident or whatever. And I guess we can. Let me see something. We're gonna do a quick Google search. November 1st, 2012 is when Mitch passed. Okay. That sounds about right. So it had to have been 2010. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But it was just one of those things that was like, if I didn't go to that Edge Fest and see them, I wouldn't be able to say I got to see Suicide Silence because I wouldn't have. You know what I mean? And it was one time, and it still is with me. Like I remember where I was at watching the show. I remember his motions, like the stomp. I wish I could say I remembered the whole set and like all that. I don't. I really don't. It was obviously they were doing. It was like when the Black Crown came out. And they were like touring that and the cleansing. But just a quick, if you guys don't know who Mitch Lucker is, this guy right here. But anybody that kind of knows me or listens to that knows about that. So, another thing too, I'm gonna dive into is I know I said there were some celebrities and musicians and stuff that passed away that influenced my life. And I'm going to talk about, that group and what I felt. Also, I'm going to talk about some like really close personal friends of mine that either committed suicide or their life was taken from them unfairly. And just kind of the importance of like just like always checking in on your people and stuff, because I didn't know the last day that I was gonna see one of my best friends was the last day I was gonna see him until I'm getting the call saying, hey, he's gone, and then also being asked to provide a song soundtrack, essentially. Not a soundtrack, but a couple songs. I was asked to pick a couple songs for one of my best friend's funeral, and that was one of the crazy, like, it was one of those moments that is like, I knew the whole room, like the song I played, the 2 songs I chose, like they were special to him and like they meant something to us together. And it's like I also felt that tension of like people that don't understand me and didn't really understand him like they thought they did looked at me like, why are you playing this song right now? It was like, I'm pretty I know it was a Slipknot song and a Marilyn Manson song. And it was like the lyrics to those songs, out of context, might kind of sound fucked up or whatever, but it was just like, if anybody is ever tasked with the unfortunate task of finding songs for my funeral, like, I know people that know me are gonna play some shit that, like, the people that truly, truly know me are gonna play some shit that are gonna have people doing the same thing that to them that happened to me. Like, what do you like? That's so disrespectful. Why are you playing this song? Like, oh, da 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 da, because you don't know what that shit meant to me. Because, like, I tell you right now, like 3 or 4 people, I could be like, hey, put me a playlist together when I pass, and I wouldn't have any doubt that it would be music that 90% of people hate. And that's just, it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that, like, you can't win for losing, and you can't lose for losing. I also want to talk about what it was like growing up with that divisive family. Never really having like that stable environment, because we were always moving around. Not so much my dad. My dad had like a few places. He had like maybe 3 total places he'd lived, 3 or 4 the whole time that I've been around. And my mom, when I was living with her and shit, she like, and getting with whatever man every couple months, and I don't know what, as a kid I didn't realize all this shit was going on around me until I like looked back and was like, oh, because we'd bounced around, and like one month we're in this like super nice beach house, lakefront property, 5-bedroom house, beautiful house. I don't know how the fuck we got in there. I'm assuming it was like she was with somebody that had the house or whatever, because I know that bitch didn't have no money to do anything like that. And then one day we're in a trailer, and one day we're in an apartment, one day we're in another apartment, and she's just bouncing around, got like different marriages, and it's like, so I think that like instability in the like the family area kind of helped me accept, like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it helped me accept better for the just things going on around me, I guess. I want to talk about eventually too, like my tattoo journey. That's actually a pretty, from my perspective, it was my tattoo journey was pretty cool. I think different than a lot of people's. I want to say I got lucky, because it wasn't really much luck. It was just I was in the right place at the right time and met the right people, and they were able to like help bring some visions to life, and you know also want to like dive into the first time I moved to Colorado, what it was like, the experiences on like the ghetto side of Denver. Like, if you're familiar with Denver, Colorado, and you know the street Colfax, I don't need to say anymore, do I? We were on the edge of, we were on Colfax, like on the edge of Denver and Aurora. So just some shit like that happened riding the public buses, getting too spiced out back in, and again I'm talking about things that are bouncing off the time, like bouncing back and forth off the timeline. Like, I met this dude when I was working at McDonald's, fucking tweaker ass Kevin. he was a nice dude, but he was like, I thought I was bad, and he's the. All I'm gonna say about this dude right now is he had a fucking meth lab tattooed on his arm right here, the table, the bottles, all that. It was the craziest fucking shit I'd ever seen. And he walked kind of funny, like he got shot in one of the legs or something. And he'd always come over. Like me and my friend Dalton had an apartment. We were 17. We were 17 years old. We had an apartment. I don't know how we pulled that off. I think our parents like co-signed us, or I don't know. But like we were living on our own before we were 18. I don't remember. I'll talk to him about that. Get him on here. Clear that up, because he might have a different way of remembering that. But this fucking bozo Kevin would come over. The reason we knew him because he worked at the McDonald's I worked at. He got hired there after. And mind you, I'd met many people that are actually really important in my life still today at McDonald's. So it's kind of like that's something I want to dive into, is like my first job. I'm gonna talk about that. Some of the people I met and some of the experiences I've had with some of the people I met there. Some good, some bad. But experience nonetheless, and that's the important thing. Is life is all about experience. Every thing you do is an experience. You experience the sunlight. You experience going outside. You experience new things and new ideas. Whatever. And it's gonna be, like I said, I want to talk about Colorado. I want to talk about social media in an episode. There's like the power of like social media is incredible. The example that I'm gonna give you here, we're gonna dive into it in another episode later, but I met a girl on Instagram, or through Instagram, and it was the weirdest shit in the world. I was like, we went to Elitch Gardens in Denver. We were both there the same day, right? And it was one of those things, like, after I got home, I'd posted a picture, or while I was there, I posted a picture, and then while she was there, she posted a picture of the same thing, of like Elitch Gardens, and I was just like scrolling through. I think I was trying to see if people, like, what people posted the day I was there, to see, I don't know, whatever I was doing. And I posted, and then I just happened to scroll across, and I'm like, oh shit, are you, like, I think I saw you, over, like, by this, I was wearing this, were you wearing this? And then she messaged me back, she was like, yeah, that was me, like, this is so crazy, like, 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 you're cute, whatever. I'm like, cool. And then she came through and, did the thing, and didn't see her or talk to her again for a couple of years. And then, like, now we're, like, Instagram, we're still friends on Instagram, but, like, there was a period of time, like, where we didn't follow each other after that. And then, like, one day I followed her and was just like, again, and was like, oh, hey, like, how have you been? On some weird shit like that. It's just crazy. Like, how, like, that whole experience never would have happened if I wasn't on Instagram, on social media, like, just looking at pictures of the same place that I was already at. Like, it was kind of weird to do, but, like, it brought me a human connection. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's weird. It's so weird. I've had so many experiences in my life that are just, like, crazy. And I mean, I have a episode planned about all the bullshit that happened in Colorado. And again, we'll dive deeper into what I just said in the Colorado episode, because I met her in Colorado, right? And that was when I was like living in the trap house on Colfax. So it was like a very weird time, because it was like trying to, like, when you're a bum, I was just on some bum shit, like just situations that I'd put myself in and let happen to myself because I wasn't thinking right and wasn't making the right choices. That's on me. But I was just in this situation. I'm like, oh man, this girlfriend to come over, and like I live in the trap house, and like I was just thinking about all the shit, like, oh, you're gonna, like, how's she gonna feel, and like, and it's so fucking weird to think about all of that now, because it's like we send each other memes and shit on Instagram now, and like, oh, hey, how's your boyfriend doing, or how is, oh, like she was recently like in a car wreck, so you know how white girls are, they fucking post everything on the internet. And so I was like, oh, I reached out, I was like, hey, I'm sorry that happened to you, hope you're doing good, da 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 da, whatever. And I just led into like a a catching up conversation of like, oh yeah, it's good to hear from you, and da 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 da. I'm trying to. I don't have much time before this thing dies. I think what I'm gonna do, now that we've got the introduction laid out, my next plan is I'm gonna start writing down. I mean, as you can see, I was already kind of writing some shit down, notes. I've been taking notes of a lot of things and songs that come to my head and whatever. But the point is, the next, I don't want to say the next several, but eventually each episode is going to be centralized around a singular topic that may branch into, for example, like Colorado, that may end up being like a 2-part episode, because A, I lived there 2 different times, and B, like 7 years is a lot of, it might even be 7 or 8 years is a lot of time to unpack and compress into a video. And not all of that was, I'm not, I want to eventually just kind of lay it all out, like everything that's just kind of ever come to my head, or something, like all the shit that I've been through that I'm just like, damn, I need to talk about this or whatever. It's gonna come out. Talk about like my social retardation, like how hard it was for me to like be a fucking, just talk to people, you know what I mean? And like I said earlier, we're gonna talk about, I don't know for sure how much I can say when it comes to some of the not so legal things I did when I was younger, because a lot of those things never couple B&Es never reported, or never like the first time I smoked weed, what that experience was like. I'm gonna talk about that, because again, like I'm trying to be more focused and have a guide of like something to say, because I'm cutting myself a little bit of slack on this video, because this is an introduction video, and in introduction you gotta kind of know what the fuck you're gonna be looking forward to in the future, right? So we kind of did go over some of that stuff, and also we kind of just talked about some of the stuff that we're going to talk about again. So I'm going to try to have it more organized, more laid out, put a plan into action about, as far as I'm not gonna be scheduled as far as like, oh, I'm gonna do X amount of podcasts a week, X amount of, because I'm already working on other projects, and if I if I'm not if I don't focus properly on these projects, I'm gonna fuck everything up. So I'm gonna do the best I can and focus as much as I can on each project one at a time, so I can put as much love and much effort and much care that's needed to be into these projects. I want to also talk about too, like my crazy ass pillhead auntie, that she got me into some shit. Like she had me doing some crazy shit, and some party, like crazy parties I've been to, crazy stories of things that probably should have, like, could have gotten me shot and or killed or arrested, that didn't. Like there's a lot of times in my life where I know I should have been arrested or dealt with in some type of way. First example, countless, and again, I don't condone this. This is just things I did as a fucking kid. Doing 95 down the interstate in an Impala with 3 other people in the car, and then you don't have to believe me. You can ask the 3 people that were with me, and they will tell you the exact same thing. We're doing about 95. We're in Russellville, going to Conway. We're coming back from. Anyway, it's that stretch of highway in Russellville that goes wherever. We're heading toward Atkins, Little Rock, that area, doing 95 on the freeway. It might even be closer to 100, 95, 100. We're going fast as fuck. And I'm come over the hill. There's a semi-truck on the right side, and there's another car on the left side of the semi-truck. And I'm going way too fucking fast. I can't merge lanes. I can't slow down. So what I do is I go over the right side in the, like, it's not even a lane where the strips in the road are that wake you up if you fall asleep. I went, like, cranked over that shit and zipped past the 18-wheeler, got back, and yeah, I gotta really be careful about criminalizing myself, because I do want to, like, kind of talk about some of the fuckery that I did in my past, but not. And again, it's not like as a braggadocious thing, or it's just like informing you and like kind of giving you, again, my side of the experience. And I don't want people to make some of the same mistakes that I did, which they're going to. People are going to make their own mistakes. They're going to have to learn and live from it, like I did. I chose to not listen to people that tried to guide me, and I learned from those mistakes, right? For right or wrong, a lot of the shit was wrong. Like, obviously, it's breaking in somebody's property. That's not a good thing to do, right? I was like just, I don't know, I felt maybe bulletproof, or maybe I thought I wanted to be a street kid, or I don't know. I don't really know exactly what was going on in my head in that sense, right? I'm gonna talk about some of the moments in life that are staggering to me. And I'm gonna talk about, like, some of the jobs I've had. My first serving job, how I got that, how I weaseled my way into a brand new restaurant in Russellville. I was one of the first servers hired at Sumo. Anybody that's eaten at Russellville, or lived in Russellville, eaten at the place called Sumo, it was me and 9 or 10 other people that were the first people hired on the floor. Like, before they were even done building it all the way, I had a job lined up before that shit started. And it was just all because